Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to take a look at Andrew Jacked from the 2023 Arnold Classic, and we're going to compare him with Flex Wheeler from the 1993 Mr. Olympia. The two versions of these gentlemen that I'll be comparing competed around 30 years apart from each other, and I want to see if Andrew Jacked is like a modern version of Flex Wheeler. Now, just a few things to get out of the way. Firstly, both of these gentlemen are obviously different heights, and I tried my best to size them. Andrew Jacked is around 6 foot 2 inches, and Flex Wheeler is around 5 foot 9. So that's why Flex Wheeler will look shorter than Andrew Jacked. Also, I chose to use the 1993 version of Flex Wheeler because he shares more similarities with Andrew Jacked. Flex Wheeler really isn't at his biggest yet, and I think that does Andrew Jacked a little bit more justice. Heading into the first shot, the front double bicep pose, which has been on screen for a little bit now, both men look kind of similar here. I mean, look at the arm shape, first of all. Andrew Jack seems to have a similar shaped bicep and tricep combination to Flex Wheeler, but Andrew Jack's forearms seem to be a bit longer. Now, Andrew Jack does look a little bit flat in comparison to Flex Wheeler, who's really full throughout his whole body. And the midsections on both men, I mean, Andrew Jack looks picturesque, but Flex Wheeler looks like a statue with the tiny, tiny midsection. I think Flex Wheeler's lats flare out a bit more here, and Andrew Jack does look amazing, but I don't think he looks as good. Now, if we look at the legs, Andrew Jack's legs are huge, his quads are humongous, and he's conditioned, but his calves are so tiny. But they do look big, but they're tiny and highly inserted. Flex Wheeler's quads are humongous as well, and his calves are huge too. So I think I'm going to have to give this first shot to Flex Wheeler. The front lat spread is close in my opinion. Both of them have amazing quads, but Andrew Jack decides to hold his legs apart, which makes his legs look a little bit bigger, while Flex Wheeler holds them together, which detracts from the overall width. Now their midsections do look amazing for both. Both have amazing abdominal development and separation, but Andrew Jack's midsection looks a little bit wider than Flex Wheeler's, so I prefer Flex Wheeler's midsection. Both have amazing striations in the chest and the shoulders, and their arms are huge and ripped, but I think Flex Wheeler has bigger arms in this pose. Now, if we look at the lats themselves, Andrew Jack's right lat seems to be atrophied or something, or he's not flaring it out properly, while Flex Wheeler, while not having the biggest lats, looks very nice and symmetrical here. I think I'm going to have to give this one to Flex Wheeler, even though Andrew Jack has a better structure, in my opinion, being a little bit wider and taller. I think I'm going to have to give this one to Flex Wheeler because of Andrew Jack's unsymmetrical lat. In the side chest pose, both men present very comparable physiques once again. If we look at the legs, Flex Wheeler has a larger quad sweep than Andrew Jack, but both men have very similar glute and hamstring development and condition. Now, if we look up, their midsections look very good here, but I think Andrew Jack isn't really flexing his midsection as well as Flex Wheeler, who looks amazing in this shot in the midsection. Now, for the chest itself, I think Flex Wheeler is losing in the chest. If we look at Andrew Jack, look how bulbous and full and separated his far pec is, and how full and bulbous his near pec is. His shoulders look very striated, and Flex Wheeler's shoulders look striated too, but not as striated as Andrew Jack's. Now, Flex Wheeler's arms look larger but less conditioned than Andrew Jack's arms do, and I think Andrew Jack presents a good physique here and a very similar physique. And also remember, guys, he is 6 foot 2. He has a lot of muscle on this humongous frame. I think I'm going to have to give Andrew Jack this pose because of how good he looks, in my opinion. In the side tricep pose, unfortunately, this is the only picture we have of Flex Wheeler from 1993. But from this picture, we can see that Flex Wheeler has an amazing tricep. His back, which we can see here, looks very nice, but we're not going to comment too much on his back because this is a side tricep pose. Now, Andrew Jack looks very awkward in this conventional side tricep pose, but he does display a very good side tricep, and his abs look very tight and conditioned. His chest looks huge, and his shoulder is very striated as well. It's unfortunate, like I said, that Flex Wheeler does not present a very good side tricep pose, if not any, besides this one. Now, we're going to go look at another picture of Andrew Jack in the side tricep pose. And in this picture here, Andrew Jack looks amazing. He looks very natural and flows very well and looks very statuesque here. The striations in the quads look phenomenal, and there doesn't really seem to be a single flaw in a physique like this. His tricep looks good, but it's not the focal point of this pose because, you're immediately drawn to his midsection and chest. I think if Flex Wheeler had a more conventional side tricep pose, it would have been definitely a more fun and easier comparison. But I think I'm going to have to give this one to Andrew Jack because it's really unfair to not because of Flex Wheeler's display. Now here in the rear lat spread, thankfully we have Flex Wheeler displaying a conventional rear lat spread. And in this rear lat spread, Flex Wheeler looks amazing. Normally he kind of has an unsymmetrical rear lat spread, but here he seems to be hiding that flaw. Now let's take a look. Andrew Jack's hamstrings do not seem to be that cut, but this is probably the best condition Andrew Jack has ever been in from the lower body. Look at his glutes. You can kind of see striations peeking through there. Now, Andrew Jack looks huge in the legs, but Flex Wheeler, look at these striations peeking through for Flex Wheeler, along with the incredible hamstring development that Flex Wheeler presents. Now, if we look further up at the actual back, Flex Wheeler has a more dense lower lat and lower back region. Now, both men have outstanding trap development, and the arms look good for both men as well. But I think for Andrew Jack, man, he is wide, but he kind of becomes shallow in the lower back area, while Flex Wheeler has a very prominent Christmas tree and lower back area. I think I'm going to have to give this rear lat spread to Flex. In the second and last back shot, the rear double bicep, if we take a look at Andrew Jack's legs, they look huge, but they do not have the same conditioning that Flex Wheeler had in the rear lat spread. Now, Flex Wheeler also seems to have lost his conditioned hamstrings that he had in the rear lat spread. Okay, so if we look up at the actual backs, though, Flex Wheeler's back is ripped and conditioned and dense, and Andrew Jack's back is just kind of watery and not that thick. It might be wider than Flex Wheeler's, but just doesn't have the same level of grainy condition and thickness. The arms on Andrew Jack look very good, but they do not look as good as Flex Wheeler's do here, and Flex Wheeler looks more complete in a pose like this from the upper body. And both men do not look phenomenal from the lower body, so if we're just taking a look at the upper body, Flex Wheeler wins, and since this is a back pose, I'm going to have to give this one to Flex Wheeler. Going into the abs and thigh shot here, and both men look very similar once again. Flex Wheeler holds this pose to the side, while Andrew Jack kind of goes straight on. Both men have phenomenal quad development. Look at these striations in Andrew Jack's quads there. It is beautiful. And Flex Wheeler has similar striations in his quads, if not more. And Flex Wheeler's legs do seem to look more, conditioned than Andrew Jack's do. If we look up at the ab development, this might be crazy to say, but Andrew Jack seems to have better abdominal development and more symmetrical abs than Flex Wheeler. And I mean, Andrew Jack looks wider too and has more lat flare in a pose like this. Even though Flex Wheeler has definitely a smaller waist, I think Andrew Jack has a small waist coupled with wide shoulders, something that Flex Wheeler really doesn't have. Um, yeah, I'm gonna have to give this one to Andrew Jack because he just does look better. Even though he's not as conditioned through the lower body, he presents a much better overall flow and package. So I'm gonna give this shot to Andrew Jack. In the last pose, the most muscular, I'm thankful I was able to find two very similar shots of these two men hitting a similar most muscular pose. Now, Andrew Jack really doesn't fill out his frame that well in a pose like this, whereas Flex Wheeler is filling out the pose to a T. Look at the midsection on Flex Wheeler and look how tiny it is, and then look how big and ripped and striated his quads are and how big his arms are. Andrew Jack has good arms, but they really aren't filled out perfectly on a frame like his. And his quads are huge too, but Andrew Jack doesn't really look as filled out as Flex Wheeler does in a pose like this. Both men have very similar levels of conditioning, but I think I'm going to have to give this shot to Flex Wheeler just because he looks very dense and filled out. So, to conclude this comparison, I had Flex Wheeler winning the front double bicep, the front lat spread, the rear double bicep, the rear lat spread, and the most muscular. I had Andrew Jack winning the side chest, the side tricep, and the abs and thighs. Overall, with a little bit more muscle, I think Andrew Jacked would definitely be considered a modern day Flex Wheeler. He has a very similar structure to Flex Wheeler and very, very similar muscle insertions. I think Andrew Jack definitely needs to work on posing in certain shots and needs to get that front lat spread fixed because if he had his front lat spread like he did at, let's say, the Texas Pro, he would have definitely won that shot. It would be interesting to see if I made a comparison between these two, specifically of Andrew Jack at the 2023 Mr. Olympia versus a more modern version of Flex Wheeler, like from the 1998 or 1999 Mr. Olympias when Flex Wheeler had put on more muscle himself. I really hope that Andrew Jack comes to the 2023 Mr. Olympia with better conditioning, better posing, and more muscle in the right places. I think if he does this, he would definitely be a contender for winning the Mr. Olympia competition. So, overall, I think Flex Wheeler's 1993 version did just enough to hold off a hungry Andrew Jack. So, I want you guys to tell me in the comments if you guys think that I did a fair comparison between these two. If you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing, and comment down below, like I said, any comments or thoughts you had, or any potential future video ideas. And once again, I want to say thank you for watching, and have a good rest of your day.